And so the last 20 years of my life and career have really centered on that major theme. And I started to do tons of research, lots of work, and I came to the conclusion that there were 5 personal traits that made for happy people, and there were 5 traits that made companies really successful. And the companies that scored highest on all of them were the breakout winners. And that's what drove me to write my book, The Business of Happiness.
So you say that you can approach happiness in the same way that you approach building a business and apply some of the same principles, goals, values. Talk a little bit more about that, and then let's segue into how those fit together to meet the 5 principles.
Sure. Well, I think in building a business, obviously there's the what's your product, what's your market, but any business of size and scale, you have to get people to believe in what you're doing, and your employees and customers and people in the market. And leadership really comes down to being able to connect with your audiences and with your employees. And that happy companies and happy employees tend to be more productive and build more value. And so in the research that I did, and the thesis in the book, is that every individual in every company will have a reckoning. You'll make your life list, and then you'll go on your search for happiness and self-actualization. While we're speaking today, downstairs there's 20,000 people listening to the Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama is one of the great leaders of our time, both political and spiritual. He just spoke in front of 100,000 people on the lawn at the mall in front of the Capitol, talking about world peace. But the basic theme of his lecture was happiness, and that there are 2 kinds of people. There's happy people who leave more than they take, and there's unhappy people, and they're takers. And you know, I do quote the Dalai Lama in my book, and I think it's just serendipity that we're doing this interview while he's playing here in the building that I own. And so the characteristics and traits that I see individuals and companies sharing that build great value all have to do with happiness. The first, as an individual, if you are an active participant in multiple communities of interest, you tend to be on the road to happiness.
Tell us a little bit more about what you mean by a community of interest.
So I manage my time and my calendar, and I look at, well, what are my communities of interest? And I obviously have my employees and my customers and my friends, most importantly my family, and where my kids go to school, and my alumni. And I look at what are all of the concentric circles of my communities of interest. And I try to be active in them. I try to connect those.